Hello and welcome to Unbox the Podcast, where we dive into the power of your story and how it shapes your life. I'm your host, Sahar Palmer, and it's really great to have you with me. Today, as Valentine approaches, we're talking about a very special kind of relationship, the one you have with yourself. It's the perfect time to address our inner critic, the voice inside that often holds us back with self-judgment and doubt. Before we jump in, if you find value in this podcast, I invite you to subscribe and leave a review and share it. It really helps to spread the good vibes and support our journey together. Identifying your inner critic. Let's start by identifying the inner critic. This is the internal dialogue that criticizes or judges you. For example, you might say things like, "You're not good enough," or "You shouldn't have said that," or "Ooh, I really bummed out." Does that sound familiar? It's harsh, it's often unrealistic, and frankly, it's not very kind towards you. In Unbox methodology, I always start with a client from the present. Whatever is bothering you now, that is a reflection of whatever has been building up inside you. So I'm really talking about the things that you struggle with now. So there's no need for analysis, which clients often love to do. Why am I like that? There's always a reason. The point is now, what do we do about it? So let's think about how this voice affects how you feel about yourself, especially in the context of relationships. It can make you doubt your self-worth, feel unworthy of love, whether it's romantic love or love and respect of colleagues, or on whatever level you can take it. Especially now as we near Valentine's Day, where emotions really run high. So I'm focusing today on emotional relationships, if you will, but you can apply the same to any kind of relationship because the relationship dynamic is very similar. Self-judgment stems from various sources: past experiences, societal expectations, even the attitudes that we were exposed to growing up. By understanding where it comes from, we can begin to address it. Really by understanding how it is built rather than where it comes from. On a very basic level, your brain always stops you from new experiences or from entering into new situations because it perceives that as a threat. So your brain's job is to preserve your survival and to stop you from taking unnecessary risks. Starting any relationship is, in a way, a threat and a risk to your brain. So maybe your first reflex is, "Ooh, I want to avoid that." And this is where self-criticism comes in, because it is a dynamic or a process that is trying to preserve you. And this is why the criticism starts. It's kind of like you're being cautious. Should I expose my vulnerabilities and trust this relationship or open up to it? My main point is self-criticism is built in. So let's not overanalyze, but really understand that it's a natural, if you will, mechanism to how the human physiology works. And if you befriend it, it will become less critical. The critic becomes less critical, if you like, once you understand that this is why we have it. And here's how the BEMA methodology, or the 4 dimensions of change, body, emotions, mind, and accountability, can help you. This tool helps us to kind of dissect this criticism and approach it from a place of understanding and compassion rather than judgment. So how do we transform criticism into compassion? Let's consider the first dimension, your physical body. Notice how you feel the tension when the critic speaks. Is your body tight? Is your chest tight? Do you have a clenched jaw? Such signals are easily recognizable. If we move to the next level, or the next dimension, which is emotions, what feelings arise when you criticize yourself? Is it inadequacy, shame, anxiety? Acknowledge these feelings without judgment now that you have the understanding that this is a natural reaction from your physiology. Then we come to the third dimension, or the mind, which includes your belief system. Challenge the critic's narrative and ask yourself, is it really true? Am I really inadequate? Do I really not know what I'm doing? Often, these criticism statements are based on fear, or they're exaggerated. Finally, let's come to the fourth dimension of change, which is accountability to action. Decide how you're going to respond. Maybe you can respond with a kind word for yourself, like literally have an internal conversation. Do you often have these internal conversations with yourself? I mean, I just grew up with them. It's like I need to talk to myself before I really proceed and do anything. I find it very helpful. It's kind of like your inner guide, your inner mentor. And once you have that discussion, you become clearer about what is it that you're doing and why. When you give yourself a kind or supportive word, it proves that the critic is wrong. Very often, I will put my hand on my forehead and I will say, stop, thank you, but I'm not listening to you. Anything like that. If you imagine a volume knob on your forehead, turn it down and say, okay, thank you, but I'm not listening. I acknowledge you, but I'm not going to act on it. Any kind of signal like that interrupts this neural circuit of the self-critic. And really gradually with time, and I don't mean a long time, it's just you need to do that 3 times, and then you begin to be in charge. Listen to the inner critic, but encounter it with a kind, positive statement to yourself. When you keep this in mind, did I talk about action? So when you come to the fourth dimension, action, you can acknowledge the self-criticism statement, and then you can say, however, I'm still going to do this. So even though I don't know what I'm doing and I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, I am still going to do it because I want to, or I owe it to myself to write the story of a new experience. By engaging the BEMA framework, you can start to transform your inner dialogue, one of criticism, into one of compassion, just as you would offer kindness and understanding to someone you love who comes to you with these critical statements about themselves. How do we apply this to relationships? As we apply these insights into our relationships, remember that how we treat ourselves sets the tone to how we interact with others. If you are naturally or regularly compassionate with yourself, you're more likely to be compassionate with your partner. If you are interesting and curious yourself, you are more likely to engage with someone who is. Such things can reduce the risk factor, if you like, when you pay homage to yourself and respect your own wishes and grow in a way that you can offer these qualities or these values to someone else when you are in a relationship. This Valentine's Day, let's strive not to express love to others, but love to ourselves. This is where love begins from. You can only give what you have. So give it to yourself. Imagine the impact of this positive, loving energy into your relationships. As we wrap up today, think about one action that you will take this week to silence your inner critic and amplify your inner voice of compassion. Maybe it's writing down 3 things that you appreciate about yourself, or setting aside time for self-care activity that makes you feel good. At the very least, have a conversation with yourself. And I usually end it with so what? Thank you for joining me today as we discuss self-criticism and self-love. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who might need a little nudge towards self-compassion. Until next time, keep unboxing, and I'll see you next week.